Hi, and welcome to this video of Dynamics 365 Talk, where I'll be talking about an interesting scenario I had to build out for a demonstration this week, which I thought would be nice to share with you all. But before we get into it, let me introduce myself. My name is Dion Taylor. I am a Microsoft MVP for business applications. Feel free to take a look at my blog at d365goddess.com. Connect with me on Twitter at D365Goddess or just scan the QR code to connect with me on LinkedIn. Now, this is the scenario. So the customer or prospect wanted to assign their leads based on a zip code to a sales rep, right? So I wanted to use the out of the box zip code field because there's usually some additional functionality that other plugins might be using with that field, right? So that's what we're trying to do. Now, before I start to actually show you how I built this out, let me first show you how this works. I'm going to create a new lead, and here is a new lead. Put in a first name, Jeff Smith, and of course we can put all this other stuff in here as well, which I'm not going to do. I'm just going to put in the zip code, and we can pick a zip code we have here, and then I'm going to save that. So this is just going to kick off my flow, and that's then automatically going to reassign that lead. You see currently that the owner name is myself, and I'm going to give it a few seconds and then refresh. Let's refresh that. And we can now see that David So is the new owner of this lead. Now, how did I do that? So the first thing that I ended up doing was creating a new entity, which is called Zipcode. And you can see here all of the fields that come with that as well. What I ended up doing is I actually made this entity an organization-owned entity so that everybody has access to it or nobody has access to it. But obviously you could also just make it a user or team ownership type of entity. Now, what I ended up doing after that is then I actually imported the zip code records, as you can see in here, and I also have a field on here with the sales rep that is responsible for that zip code. So in this particular scenario, every zip code was assigned to one particular sales rep, meaning that one sales rep can have multiple zip codes, but the zip code itself only is assigned to one sales rep. So that's the first thing that I did. The second thing that I did is I actually started to configure my lead form. So here we are on my lead form. Let me just scroll down where we can find the zip/postal code field. And I'm just going to go to details and open that field up. So you can see that this is indeed that out of the box single line of text field, address 1_postal code. So what I ended up doing is I actually added the autocomplete control. So you can do that by clicking add control, clicking autocomplete, and then clicking add. When you do that, you actually will see that you have the ability to either select the source for that value to be either a view or an option set. So that means that values that we're going to store in this field are either going to come from a view or an option set. And then if you click here on view, right, once you pick view, I have to choose which entity and which view I want to use for that. So you can see here that I'm using my active zip codes field. Now, you saw earlier, I showed you the zip codes that I imported, and I also showed you the sales folks that were related to each of those zip codes. So now that we've done this, we've configured the CE part, now I'm going to create a flow to actually assign that lead record based on that zip code once that lead is created. So let's log into Flow and take a look at that. So let's go ahead and create that new flow. You can click here on that new button, and then I'm going to say automated from blank, because I just want to go ahead and automate that flow, right? When that record is created, then I want the system to look at the zip code. I want it to then query my zip code entity, those records in that zip code entity, and bring back the correct zip code and then assign it to the rep that we have assigned to the zip code. Now again, we want to do this when a new record is created. Record, when a record is created, and obviously we're picking the common data service here. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, and I'm just going to hit the create button. Now I'm also going to put a name in here. So this is going to be based on create, reassign, lead based on zip. And I'm actually going to put in front of here flow, so that if we're looking at the solution, we're going to be able to see that. So let's start with that. So this is going to run from my current environment, and I want this to happen when a new lead is created. And then this is going to be an organization scope, because I want this to happen to fire all the time. Okay, so let's go ahead and now come up with a new step. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to actually get that zip code from Dynamics 365. So I'm going to initialize a variable, because we want to store that zip from Dynamics 365. So I'm going to say Dynamics 365 zip, that's going to be a string, and the value is coming from Dynamics 365. So I'm going to look for that zip postal code field. Here we go. So here's our zip code coming from Dynamics 365 now into Flow. Then the next thing that we want to do is, again, I want to initialize a variable so that later on I'm actually going to be able to store my sales rep from that zip code record. Again, this is going to be a string as well, but I'm not going to put anything in here because this is just a placeholder for that sales rep that is related to that particular zip code. Okay, now I want to go ahead and query my zip code records, and then I want to compare it to the zip code that is in the lead of Dynamics 365. So I'm going to say I want to list records in the common data service, again, of course, and again, it's my current environment, and I'm going to be looking for zip codes, obviously. Let's see if I can make this a little bit larger here. And obviously I want to filter my query because I'm looking for the zip code that equals that zip code that the lead has. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter my query, and I'm going to use my primary name field. So let me pull that up. Here's my solution, and let me find my zip codes entity. Here it is. And I want that primary field right over here, the name field. I'm going to copy that. I want to filter that where the NFB zip code equals, and now we got to do the single quotes where that equals that zip code from the lead coming out of Dynamics 365. That's what I want to do. And then I should only get one record back from that. Then what I want to do is then I want to actually get that value and append that to that sales rep from string variable that I just created over here, right? Here's my empty container. So now I'm going to append the value. Here we go. So that is, here is my empty container, my sales rep from Zip. And the value is that sales rep field, right? We see here the list records. This is my query. And which field do I want? I want the sales rep field. So now you can see that it does that apply to each, which is fine. If you want to get more fields here, currently, like I said, we are just extracting that sales rep field, right? But if you want to extract more data, obviously you need to have some variables here that you can then use, and then you would do that inside of this apply to each box. Now, I now have that sales rep from that zip record. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to now click on new step, and I want to update my lead. So I want to update a record, which is that lead, with, I'm going to assign that, that's again my current environment, and that is my lead record. Let's try that one more time. Leads, here we go, my leads. And then we need to get that record identifier. Well, the record identifier is not list records. We're going to go down when a record is created. This is that initial lead record, right? So what I want is, I'm going to look for, let me scroll down, it should say lead. And here it says this is the unique identifier of that lead. That's what we're going to use. And let's go ahead and then show those advanced options. So I can hit Control V to look for owner. You can see this is what I'm looking for. I want to assign this to an owner. Now, that field that I have on my zip code entity is a system user field. So what I'm going to do is here is I'm going to say this is going to be a system user type of owner. And then again, I want to get that sales rep from Zip, right, that I stored, and I want to put that in the owner field. And that is really all that you have to do. We got to make sure that we save this, right? It's saved in here. And let's go ahead and test that. Okay, so I'm going back here to my leads. I'm going to create another lead. I'm going to say flow test, and let's just go ahead and pick one of those zip codes. I'm going to click save here, and I'm going to go back to my flow. So let's go ahead and see if it's running. And here we can see that it actually succeeded. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, hit that like button. Feel free to subscribe on my blog, and hopefully I'll see you next week for another video. Thanks so much.